Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar called From Crash to Comeback 10, count them 10 steps to fix your stream fast. This webinar is brought to you by streamingchurch.tv. That's us in conjunction with Daily Dive 365. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end here. So we appreciate you spending some time with us on the webinar today. Thanks for being with us. And this is recorded. So if you do have to drop out and you have to split or something, hopefully you've signed up. That's obviously how you got in here. So you will get the recorded copy and feel free to share it with other people. So we do have a special offer at the end of the webinar. So stay tuned for that. We will also have some Q&A afterwards as we talk about 10 steps to fix your stream fast. So as we kind of move in here, let's introduce the usual gang here. My name is Phil Thompson. I'm with streamingchurch.tv. Steve Lacey is with us. He's our founder and our CEO of streamingchurch.tv. Michael Gray is here in the background as well. He does support for streamingchurch.tv. And all of us, and even people behind the scenes here have been involved in ministry for a long time. And we understand that using technology in ministry can be frustrating at times, but we certainly want to be there for you to help you and help you, your church and your ministry use technology effectively. So let's just go ahead and jump into this. It is called From Crash to Comeback. We're going to talk about when your stream crashes and how you can bring it back. So first of all, we have what I would call a pre-log. We've got a couple of these here before we get into the steps, and I'll let Steve Lacey address this because this is one of his favorite subjects.
Yeah, so I participate in our stream every week at our church, and the way we have it things set up is we have actually a separate room where we're managing the switching and all the online things, and it can get really so people can come into the room. We're not in the church service, and they can start talking to us. So it's been and it's really challenging sometimes to get to let them know that I'm not ignoring you because I don't want to talk to you. I'm ignoring you because we got something going on here. So yeah, it can get really challenging. And then even when we get some downtime, even the guys that are in the room working it, their job goes away. And so they can start talking, Dad, did you see the game this weekend? And I was just like, so creating a distraction-free environment will is a precursor to getting this all set up. So just a little, I don't know, somewhat of a pet peeve of mine. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's tough, and we can talk a little more about that later. But it is challenging. You want to be nice to people, but you also have a job to do. And I'm like you, Steve. I get distracted. I don't like it. So this is our pre-prologue, and then we also have what I would call a prologue to this. We got 10 steps coming up here. But another thing that we would encourage you to do is have a checklist. Have a checklist of that you can go through before the service all of your equipment for streaming. Now, you may ask, well, what should be on that list, Phil? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's just quickly cover it real quicker. So first of all your equipment for streaming video, or honestly, the equipment in the church that's somehow or another connected with streaming video. So we're talking camera, microphones, obviously computer, your streaming software or streaming hardware. Check all the cables to make sure they're secure and functioning properly. The other thing, of course, which is very important, and that would be internet connection. Oh my goodness. You want to verify that you have a stable internet connection, and you want to make sure that you have that you do some testing, that you have enough upload speed. We'll get into that in a moment, but you do want to run a test. I encourage you to always run a speed test by doing it before the service. So by all means, we'll get into that in a moment or so. As we continue to talk about your checklist here, check your streaming software, your hardware. Make sure you check for updates. Open up the streaming software. Don't do it 2 minutes before the service starts. Take a little bit of time, as much time as you can beforehand to deal with updates, or you got to log into something. Maybe you want to make sure that everything's set up right, that everything's correct. If you do multiple streaming or if you do different services during the week, you want to make sure everything's on the same page. You got the right thing going on there. and then make sure the settings and all that stuff. Let's keep moving along here. Audio and video. Obviously, you want to check microphone levels and adjust if needed. You want to make sure there's no background noise or echo like we have here on this podcast or this webinar. Sorry about that, guys. And you want to also make sure that you test the audio quality, maybe even with a short recording. That would be good, right? And so, again, we're just going through a quick checklist here. If you actually get in the habit of doing this every week, it will become easy. The other thing is the order of service, the service order. Now, look, some of you guys have lots of things going on during a church service. You have announcements, you have maybe special music, maybe a special guest, maybe there's something going on. Review the order of service. Make sure you've got everything necessary. With the announcements, all those kind of things are so important. Certain music that you've got, maybe special numbers of music, roles and responsibilities of team members. Graphics and titles, this is just obviously kind of common sense. If you're going to run graphics and titles on your stream, make sure you got all that stuff in order. Social media, again, if you're going to do some social media stuff, scheduling all that, make sure you've got that all set up to go if you want to promote your stream on different platforms, engaging content and all that good stuff. And rehearsal. What do I mean by rehearsal? Well, you may not have a rehearsal, but again, you want to find out who's standing where, what's going on next. You just want to make everybody on your team available and aware of what's going on, because that will make life so much easier. So that's just a quick pre-service checklist. Maybe you've got some other ones that you can add to this. Just let us know. We'll do a Q&A here in a moment or so. All right, let's move on here a little bit, and let's talk about problems. Steve, you're really good at solving problems.
Yeah, had some heart palpitations this morning on some things. So yes, not my favorite thing in the world. Anyway, this is a chart that Phil had gathered, and what this kind of shows is that very small percentage of people have had or have significant issues. A little bit larger with moderate and a little larger for minor. And then the majority of people on a Sunday morning don't have issues. So, but this webinar is all about how you solve those problems when you do have significant issues. So, and a lot of it has to do with, you talked about the checklist. I've got a longtime friend of mine who's a pilot, and I asked him about, the manuals and stuff, and he's like, they're all written in blood. I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, people have had problems. They end up into our procedures and processes, and they're super important. So
Yeah.
following a structured process is important. So that's one of the chief ways to avoid some of these problems. But if you get into a problem, that's what we're going to show you next here, or coming up soon here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add to this too, that as you said, if you've been streaming for a while, most people don't have problems. 80% of them don't have problems, but there can be minor glitches, minor issues. That's about 10%. Noticeable issues, according to ChatGPT, 7%, and major issues that cause this really major disruption is about 3%. So look, it doesn't matter what the percentages are. When you got a problem, it's a problem. It's a big deal, right? And so you want to make sure you do that. Most people that have problems are new at streaming or started something else up. But all right, let's just move along here a little bit. But what the point is, hey, not a lot of people maybe have problems in percentage of the whole pie, but when you have a problem, it's important to you, and it's important to us as well. So what are some of the, I don't know if you can call them the categories of these problems? Technical difficulties is really a category. This is involving equipment malfunctions, internet connectivity issues, software glitches, hardware glitches. Another struggle when it comes from crash to comeback is there's many times a lack of technical expertise. Many churches just don't have the necessary technical knowledge or resources to troubleshoot and resolve some of these issues. We certainly understand that. That's why we're here. And it's something that's maybe not necessarily falling under a crash category, but still it's important. Sometimes there can be platform limitations, restrictions on your platform that you use for streaming. Maybe doesn't have the features, the live chat, maybe the video on demand. Maybe there can be some integration issues, device problems, device compatibility problems, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Some platforms just don't are not compatible with all devices, certain smartphones, tablets, or computers, maybe a bad user interface, or limited engagement tools. So this is not really a crash thing, but it's still important to make sure that your platform, whatever you're using, is compatible and works well. So let's continue to boogie on here. Oh my goodness, Houston, we have a problem. Very famous line from really a true line that came back from when the Apollo 13 had the problems, right?
Yes.
And uh, let's get into what the problems are. So the most common streaming issues that we run across, the most common, are stream drops. The stream is going along and then it just kind of stutters and drops away, and away we go. We're gone. The other one is very common, and that's stream buffering. Stream buffers. It hesitates. It maybe even loops or something, and there's just, it's not working. What's wrong? It goes away. And then another issue is audio issues, and this may not necessarily be a crash thing, but we're going to get into this a little bit later. We'll get into a little more detail of this, but sometimes the audio is out of sync, and we'll handle some questions, try to answer that a little bit for you. There can be network latency, computer processing problems with that cause the audio and video to be out of sync. Maybe incorrect settings. Again, we will jump into that. And something that we run across quite a bit, and that is, and again, it's maybe not a crash thing, but it's still just as bad
It,
almost.
yeah, it does. It makes the stream unwatchable, and
Exactly.
that's typically overdriven or no audio, right?
That's right.
Overdriven is worse for me. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's painful to the ears
Yeah.
and can't quite understand it. So
Yeah, either low, really too low, or as you just mentioned, overmodulation. Just be, that kind of a thing, and you just can't hear it. So we'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. But those are things. So, Steve, well, what should we do if we're having like some of these things like buffering and
yeah,
and
so
all that?
as we put this thing together, we kind of went through just our recipe that we have in place, when this is our checklist for disaster recovery. And the top of the list is, because this is the most common issue, is to check your internet speed. So, and we run into people all the time. That's not my problem. I pay for 100 meg up and we got 100 meg up and life is good. And we're like, oh, humor me, let's run a test. And they're like, oh, wow, we've got 3 meg up and we're paying for 100. What's going on? Well, a bunch of people showed up at the facility. Maybe you have open Wi-Fi. Somebody's watching the game. You have no idea. So that's number one thing, is to check your internet connection. And the other thing we say is they'll confuse the download, which is what everyone publishes. Is when you buy internet services, you're buying your download speed, because 98% of everyone, 99% of everyone is consuming digital media. And so the download is what's really important. The upload is not important it's not advertised as much, but for streaming, upload is where it's all at.
That's
So
right.
download doesn't matter, doesn't play in, just your upload speed. So, and the other pieces of this have to do with your ping and your jitter. It's just kind of the robustness of your connection. Um,
Yeah,
we
and
went to, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was just going to jump in here and say that there's all sorts of different speed tests out there. People are going to ask, well, what do I do for a speed test? And there's speedtest.net, but some of these are connected, like speedtest.net. I have Comcast in my office. I think all of us do here, and here on this podcast, or I keep calling this a podcast. It's a webinar, but sometimes the speed test will go right to like Comcast. Speed.net that you can jump on at Comcast that we use is Xfinity is the consumer version of that. It'll just go right to their server. And a lot of times it looks really good, that the test results look good. But if you go somewhere else, like we're promoting speed.streamingchurch.tv, that takes you to another place, but it sometimes will give you a more accurate number of what you're
Right.
dealing with here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, not to get too technical in there, but the further geographically you're going from your location, the more hops it has to take. So there's a more potential for problems across different hops. So you want to test, not just going from your facility to the street corner. You want to get, let's run a test that's going to run me across, halfway across the country.
And
So,
this is why we promote speed.streamingchurch.tv is somewhere you can go. And then actually, when you get there, you can choose a server. And most of our content delivery network servers are in Atlanta, so you can choose Atlanta, and you can run a speed test. And just for your information, people are going, "What is this ping thing?" The ping thing is really it's how long it's a little test that shows you how long it takes for the packets to be sent from the local device to the destination. This is all milliseconds, and that's you could also call this latency, right, Steve?
if you're a gamer, this is a really important thing. Because we went to high speed internet at our home many years ago, and we had we went from dial up to high speed internet at 1 megabit per second download and like 1 megabit up. But as my kids found out, working with their other friends, is our ping was terrible. And so that was their gameplay was suffering because of the ping. So
How
it's not
sad.
as important with streaming, but it's kind of a measure of how robust your connection is.
Yeah, it can be if it's really way off. The jitter is that's a dance that you do in high school when you were growing up. The jitter bug. Oh no, wait, that's not it. Jitter's it's a variation in response times. A good connection will have a reliable and consistent response time, and they say the lower your jitter score here is, the better. So yeah, but we don't want to get in the weeds too much here. But we do want to again emphasize upload speed. That's what you want to make sure that you really have.
And you don't want those upside down. You don't want 24 meg upload and I'm sending out 25 meg of stream. So,
Uh,
which would be a lot. But, a lot of times you look at that because then you're going to have problems. That means your pipe's not going to handle it.
as the guy that gets most of these calls on Sunday, I have a couple of tips. Number one, make sure you're doing the test during the service that you're actually streaming, because it will change depending on the timing.
Yep.
It'll come and go. So, and then the other thing is do three or four tests, because it'll change, and see if you're seeing some big fluctuations or big dips in your upload. That can also be an indicator of, you may hit that one time when it's really high and then hit it again and it's like 3 and you're like, whoa. It can have some huge waves, and if they're dipping too low, it'll cause all of those issues we mentioned before.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're beating this horse pretty hard here, but I always go back to years ago. When I was working with Mike at the church they're at now, we had issues. We always had pretty good internet for the most part. And then one day, well, I think Tiger Woods came into town for the golf tournament, and our internet just disappeared. And I remember thinking, man, we got problems, and we had real delays and everything. I thought, I got to call customer support, and then I realized, wait, I'm customer support. So anyhow, it can happen. Your internet can go away even if you pay a lot of good money for it. So do the test. All right. Shall we move on here, guys? So here's another tip here. If you're having problems, and there's this thing that most churches have called a router. And there's several things you want to look at with your router. If you're having problems, you want to make sure, first of all, that it's on, that the power light is on and working. And you'd be surprised, things happen sometimes. And sometimes some of them have internet indicators. So you want to make sure that light is on and steady. And you really do want to check your connections on all your cables. I mean, again, depending on where your router is, sometimes it gets bumped, sometimes it gets moved. Another thing you can do with your router is restart it. Restart the router and modem, and a simple restart many times will resolve the problems. It's amazing how that is. And then again, we get into device. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just about restarting the router. You can walk up to it and push the power button, or you can also log on to your router and restart it from wherever you're
Yeah.
at. Yeah,
And
it will definitely restart when you switch the power switch.
and
Sometimes they're stuck in an attic though, but
yeah, sometimes it'll be hard to get to. And there are some internet companies that you can log on if they give you an app, they can restart things from the internet company. Comcast is something like that.
Yeah.
They can restart it. So that sometimes can really solve your problems. So anyhow, so router is important. Sometimes we forget about the router, but sometimes it's there. The other thing here is when we talk about crash to comeback, monitoring your CPU performance. This is something that, especially if you have software, streaming software like OBS, Wirecast, vMix, something like that, that's on your computer. Your CPU, the CPU stands for, what is it? Central Processing Unit. It's the brain of your computer. So it's responsible for doing all sorts of stuff on your computer. And you may have other things going on your computer, lots of things happening on your computer that you're streaming with. We always advise you not to have a lot of things going on, that you have a computer set up specifically for streaming. And but if you've got other things going on with that computer, close everything out. Any application you got that you don't need, running too many programs simultaneously can put a real strain on your CPU. And I always tell people some of the software like Wirecast and vMix will give you total CPU usage on those machines, on that software. And if you're running really over 70-80%, you're getting in the danger zone, because that can fluctuate, and depending on what you're doing. So we again would encourage you not to have a lot of stuff on that computer running. If you're running a software for live streaming, just get the basics on there. Okay. All right. We good with that, guys?
Mhm.
All right. So let's talk about another thing. Steve, you had mentioned, or I think Michael maybe mentioned, that if you're sending a high video bit rate and you've got internet issues, that can be a problem.
Yeah.
How do you fix that?
So yeah, we kind of get, like I mentioned, we go through this process, and it's kind of like I have a daughter-in-law who's a doctor, and she works in the ER. And so these first things are, does he have a pulse? Are they breathing? Clear the airway, this. So those ones the first three we talked about are the ones that, that's the first things to check. And everything checks out good over there. Let's go check out your encoder settings. So let's go see what bit rate you're uploading, which is typically a very common issue, as well as we spent, Phil, you spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours with somebody yesterday, kind of just really digging into the weeds of all their settings, going through keyframe settings and things like that. So check your encoder settings. Again, you want to make sure if you've run the speed test, which was step number 1, that you want to set your encoder to stream at, Phil likes no more than 1/3 the amount of your upload, which is probably a good safe place. Others recommend half, but so
So
you
elaborate on
definitely.
that. What does that mean, Steve? Just
So that would mean that, as I mentioned earlier, we had that speed test that showed, say it shows I've got 6 megabits per second upload, which is what we used to have at my home office here now, but we got more. And so that would tell me that I don't want to, if I'm following Phil's rules or, the common rules here, I don't want to stream any faster than 2 megabits per second. Because as you stream, that's going to vacillate around 2 meg. It's going to go up to 3 megs for a second and then drop down to 1.5. It's going to bounce around that 2 meg. But if I and then my internet connection is going to bounce around, as Mike pointed out, it's going to go up and down. So if I get into a situation where I have a setting on my encoder that is pushing the stream that it needs to go out at, say, 3 meg, and my internet drops down to 1.5 meg, it can't overcome that. It's the only resolution of that is buffer or drop frames. And those are a key thing, is the dropping frames. It'll say, I want to send 30 frames per second, but I'm only going to get you 4, because I don't have enough bandwidth to send that many. And I'm going to drop 26 frames, and they aren't going to get broadcast. So that's another key indicator on your encoder, is looking at your drop frames.
yeah, and this is just a shot from vMix. You can see the 1500 there. If you can see that, is that's the video bit rate that's it. But again, we can talk more about that later, what you should send. But these are just some of the settings that you could look at. Every live encoder has something you can change the settings on. All right, so let's move on here. So here's another tip for you. And sometimes this works. You're having buffering, you're having issues, and you've gone through some things. Sometimes you can just stop the stream on your live encoder, and then you can restart the stream. And sometimes that, I don't know if that clears the cache or does something on depending on certain live encoders, but sometimes you can stop it for a minute or so and restart it. That's one thing. And then the other issue would be maybe you actually go a little further and you stop the computer, you restart the computer. You restart, you drop the live encoder and reboot the live encoder. So maybe turn it off, turn it back on. I know that's a joke for many people, but it sometimes works, believe it or not, depending on what you got.
Tech support 101. Did you turn it off and turn it back on?
Sometimes that works. And some of these things, you may laugh at these things, but there can be connection issues. And I don't know why it happens. Depends on the environment you're in and what's going on. But sometimes jiggle the wires. Now, I'm saying jiggle the wires. I'm being funny here, but you don't want to be jiggling the wires every Sunday. So if you've got a cable problem, you definitely want to change it out eventually, right?
Yeah. I mean, back in our little control room, it's spaghettiville of cables and stuff. So it oftentimes it comes down to, oh, we're not getting audio to the encoder. Why are we getting audio to the encoder? And the AV guy will start pulling, well, audio's coming from this soundboard over to here to here. Let me pull this cable out, put it back in. Did that change it? And a lot of times it's, oh, we've got a bad connector, we have a bad cable, and it resolves the problem. So
Yeah.
typically you have a complete failure with these things. So like, I'm not getting audio. That's a really common one. Not getting audio to my stream.
It would just behoove you, if you're somebody here that does streaming video, or you're a pastor listening to this or watching this webinar, to get with your tech team and make sure they understand where some of the key cables are. Just a little bit of an idea where some of these are.
Yeah, the other thing is that they do very good at our church is they label every cable, every end of every cable.
That's good.
So when you're looking at a spaghetti wire, oh, this is, mono audio coming from Jerry's mic, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so so you're not trying to figure out which of these 7 black cables do I disconnect and
Exactly.
reconnect.
And that takes a little bit of time to label that stuff and know where those things are kind of going. But you know what? If you take the time to do that, it will save you a lot of time and trouble and a lot of heartache.
Especially when there's an emergency.
Yeah, especially when everything else. All right. So here's this sounds like self-promotion, but actually it's true. You know what? You're having a problem, crash to comeback, get expert help fast. Maybe try some of those things we just mentioned with the internet speed and some of that stuff. But hopefully you've got a company that monitors, that's around on the weekends, that's around, especially Sunday mornings, through chat, call, or email. If only there was a company out there that's provided that kind of service.
I heard that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't go to church, so he's probably available on Sunday mornings for you.
There you go. There you go. So obviously
Call
we're
Mark.
streaming.
He'll answer the phone.
We're streaming church.tv. So
or anyone else from his company. There is no service. Just you better figure it out yourself on social platforms.
Same for YouTube and any of them.
Yeah, there are many companies, unfortunately, that don't have that.
Ironically, we often get the call and say, my Facebook stream's not working. Well, we found, Mike goes through this a lot. We found where are you located? Oh, I'm in the Southeast. Yeah, Facebook had an outage this morning in Southeast. So we're doing Facebook support for our customers. So
reach out to us if you use us. If you don't use us, you might want to consider using us. Us are streamingchurch.tv. All right. But it's good to have something like that. All right, let's move on here a little bit. We're starting to run out of time. Here's another step that you should consider, strongly considering, that is notify your viewers. If your stream goes down, you can't seem to get it up in a timely fashion, notify your viewers. How do you do that? Well, if you have a live chat platform like we offer, you could put that in the live chat, because your stream may be down, but your chat is probably going okay. So you could put that in there. If you've got a Alyssa, I don't know who, somebody jump in here. How else do you notify your viewers? I mean, anybody got a members list or something, or maybe
Well,
social media? I
as
don't
a
know.
marketer, I encourage people to find other ways to be in touch. I think the best one that we live in the world we live in today is get a phone number so you can text. You can do a group text, you can do a lot of different things, but yeah, you can do messaging through multiple platforms, and email, just all the whole list, phone, email, but primary text is really a big one to say, hey, there's an internet outage, the stream won't be up until there's a recording later, or whatever that information may be.
Yeah, it's so helpful. If you can do that, it just it's a nice thing to do. It's polite, and it just helps your members, kind of really, because people are going, what's going on? What happened? So notify your members if you can. And then here's another one that, and we got a few more things here to talk about, but what happened to this? I thought I had something else on there. I guess I don't. Let's jump in. I don't know if this is slides out of order, Steve, but I'll let you take this. We were
Yeah, so
talking a little bit about audio
we,
video issues.
yeah, and it's probably, and we've, as you've mentioned many a time, if if the audio is not good, people aren't going to stick around. People will put up with video problems more than they will with audio problems. But if they're not able to get the message, you need to get in there. So typical ones and is most obvious, most common issue is either too low or too loud. And everybody's got a VU meter on their encoder and other places, and you want to have that thing in the yellow and maybe occasionally bounce into a red every, you know, 10 seconds or so. That's typically a good level and measuring it at the encoder point. So I think a lot of people take the signal from a soundboard and they push it over to the encoder, and it's either way too low or too overdriven, and it just makes it really a big deal. The other one that we run into, which is less common, is getting the audio out of sync, where the lips and you feel like you're watching a Japanese kung fu movie or something, where it's got the different voice to the video. So there's most of the encoder tools will have an ability to get in. It's usually very deep in the settings. So you're going to want to find that depending on what encoder tool you have, and you can set up a delay or an acceleration depending on where your audio is out of sync, if the audio is in front of the video or vice versa. So you can either accelerate it or retard it so that it will be in sync again.
Yeah, and if you need help on this, folks, reach out to us, because there are some other ways that you can even adjust the audio video. Sometimes it's your frames per second and those kind of things too. But we're available to answer any questions. But yeah, and let me just add this too. When it comes to audio mixing, you should try to monitor it online. You should try to be able to listen and watch the stream, maybe on your mobile device or maybe on another computer, because what you think you hear may not be what people hear online. And so it could be distorted online,
Yeah.
could be too low. So
Yeah.
there's going to be a delay. There is going to be an audio delay, audio video delay. That's typical. But you have to make, if you're going to make adjustments, you got to keep that in mind, because you may have a 30-second delay, but you want to really see what it sounds like or hear what it sounds like online.
Yeah.
And so you need to monitor that. So, all right. I would really encourage you, when you have a crash or even have any kind of a technical problem, to have some kind of a communication plan and document the issue. Who needs to know about this? What do we do? How do we work on this? Because if you don't document the issue, if you don't communicate the issue, guess what? You'll have a problem. It's a good chance you'll have the same problem next week and the week after that. I was just talking to a pastor yesterday who, I said, how long have you been having this problem? Well, he goes, I think we've been having it for several weeks, but I just found out about it last week. Okay. So somebody needs to tell somebody if there's a problem. And so have a communication plan and document the issue and make sure the right people know about it. All right. Okay. Here's our special offer, guys. We'll take Q&A here in a moment. So you got some questions, you can put them in the chat. But here's our special offer. If you would like to get the 10 Commandments of streaming video, we've got the 10 Commandments of streaming video. Just send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv, and we'll do you one better. Not only will we send you a PDF of the 10 Commandments of streaming video, but we'll also send you a link to a webinar we did earlier this year on the 10 Commandments of streaming video. So you'll get the PDF, and then you'll get the webinar that we did earlier this year on the 10 Commandments and of streaming video. Okay? So sign up, send an email, support@streamingchurch.tv.
Bill, what's in that? What's in the streaming 10 Commandments of streaming video?
It's a picture of Moses coming
Okay.
down with his iPhone, no, his iPad tablets.
Okay.
So these are some key tenets of how to have an effective digital streaming ministry. So these are some of the things that some of the best guys are doing, and some of them are really basic, and some of them are maybe things you hadn't thought of. So it's just how to be effective in your streaming, your church.
We covered a few points from that, but there's more. So just send us an email. You can do it right now. Support@streamingchurch.tv. We'll send that off to you, and we'll also send you the webinar. All right. One more thing before we take some Q&A. We have lots of resources here at streamingchurch.tv. We're all about trying to help churches use technology. We understand it's a challenge. We've been in it ourselves with our own churches. So there are some things that will help you. We have a new product out called dailydive365.com. Check it out. It will take your recorded sermon and create 7, depending on how long your sermon is, 7 daily devotions. It will create those devotions, the content. It will make it available for people that read every day a devotion. It can be in your pastor's voice or in a professional voice. It can publish it over Alexa news flash briefings. It can create a podcast for you. What else can it do?
One of the unique things is this thing will deliver it all the way to your congregation's hands. You don't have to do anything, with this. As soon as you schedule it, it's going to be on their phone, it's going to be in their Alexa app, and it's going to be on their podcast.
Yeah. Or
in their hands on their podcast.
And it does do some social media clips too, as well, of the sermons as well. But the big deal is daily devotions. So you just go over to dailydive365.com and you can make a free trial, and we'll work with you on that thing and help you get it going. Okay. Church Solutions Podcast, that's subscribe to it wherever you get your podcast. We do it every week. Done it for over 10 years. Check out our blog at blog.streamingchurch.tv. We, again, all these things are there, resources to help you. And of course, as we've been talking about, streamingchurch.tv, we provide streaming video and we have features specifically for the church. And let's talk. Oh, yeah, coming up next month, October 15th, we've got another webinar coming up, and we're inviting the guys from StreamDudes.com. Stream Dudes, these guys, John Basali and Chris Lang, are great guys. They specialize in equipment for streaming video. So we're going to talk about 2 roads to live streaming your church. There are two roads to go, and we'll tell you what those roads are next month, right? So, but you can check out streamdudes.com. They provide some great equipment, and they're just good people. All right. Okay. Let's go on and take a little bit of Q&A here as we wrap things up. If you have questions, we have answers, or maybe not, but maybe we'll try. So if you haven't put anything in chat, please feel free to do that. If you've got some questions in chat, I've got a couple here that have been popped up here. We have anything right now in chat that we need to look at? Anything? Okay. So I can't read my own. Oh, okay. Here we go. At the very beginning, Steve, you mentioned about distractions. Are there some practical tips? I mean, how do you keep people away from bothering you in a polite manner?
Yeah, usually you got a headset on. You put that, or you keep your headset on, and you like raise your finger or put your hand up. That's really not the best way. I'm not sure I've got the we've also done in our area is they have posted some kind of tips about how to be effective doing our ministry we're doing in the back, and probably having one of those, don't distract the guys running the equipment while the service is on. I mean, before the service and after the service, well, after the service is usually really safe. Before the service may still have issues because we actually get there mm, a couple of hours before the service starts to start doing our job. But yeah, that's maybe just posting some
Yeah.
things in your area.
Yeah, every church is different. Some people, all their stuff's in the back of the church on a big table or something, and it's kind of hard to keep people away. But honestly, posting a sign, occasionally making an announcement politely about it will definitely help things a little bit. If you've got something like a live church has in Tucson, Arizona, they have a setup in the back where the sound is mixed and stuff, and you have to kind of go up on a what is it, an elevated platform area, and I think they have a little door or a little like half door that keeps people out, maybe. I don't know, but it's challenging. But if you can communicate for people to help keep things distraction free for the people in the back, that includes even people running sound and stuff. I mean, it can be challenging. I read somewhere about a backup plan. Is there a backup plan if my stream stops? What should my backup plan be?
Well, a
Anyone
lot of
take that?
times we're walking you through the top 10 diagnostics. And if it completely fails, then, for example, my internet went out. I'm not sure there's much of a backup plan other than letting people know, go onto the chat platform and say, hey, we're sorry, we lost internet at the church. But we're hoping it'll be back soon. And that's what a lot of people are doing.
Some churches have, I'm not sure a lot of them have this, but there are some that have two different networks.
That is true. Yes, that is an option as well. We actually had that at our church for a long time, and mainly to protect the stream network. We had another network that everyone else is on. So if you have that luxury, you can switch over to a backup internet connection and try that route. I mean, there's other deals that actually with the 5G cell services that are going out. There's options. We were stuck in an airport yesterday, or yes, Tuesday or Sunday,
Sunday, we were there Sunday.
and the internet in the airport was terrible. So we were jumping on. I was grabbing my phone and connecting my laptop to the phone's data connection, so that may be an option. A lot of times, that's not robust enough to stream.
Well,
But
if you're going to do that, you might have to lower your video
yeah,
bit
you may have
rate
to lower
that
your
you're
bit rate and
sending.
go that route. Yeah.
But that could be today with 5G out there. That could be a viable option.
Yeah, and it'll probably be
So,
more and more viable as we
yeah,
go forward
yeah,
with
yeah.
improved
My
capabilities.
answer, my answer to that would be, think all this stuff through. That this is part of the reason we're doing this webinar, right? Is you should have this kind of list in your back pocket, so to speak, so that when something goes wrong, you don't necessarily go to a full-blown panic, but you've got some ideas on what to do next.
Yeah. Or
And
if you have, let's say you have hardware encoder and it fails, there are backups where you can say, oh, I can download OBS real quick and get my credentials and get running off of a computer instead of my hardware that just failed.
yeah,
So
wouldn't be a
that's
bad idea to have if you do hardware to have a live encoder, a software encoder already on your machine that
yeah,
you could
on
use
another machine.
on the
Yeah, it's
computer.
something you can recover with fast too.
Yeah, it's really one of those things.
So,
Um, Here's a question that's kind of related. My internet or my everything checks out, but my video seems choppy and doesn't seem like it's matching up. The question, I guess, is the cameras that I use. You were talking about resolutions and all that stuff. What about my camera? Should my camera match my encoder settings as far as resolution and video?
yeah, that'll help. I mean, you're going back to a issue we were working yesterday, right, with a particular church, and they were having, it didn't look like it was a streaming problem where the stream was causing the kind of the jerkiness. And so we're thinking that what you want to do is make sure that your settings on your computer, things like frame rates and things like that, are consistent with your encoder so that it doesn't have to make some large adjustments for potentially having, mismatches on resolutions and frame rates and things, because you can have the camera's going to have a certain resolution, your encoder's going to have a different resolution. And if it doesn't have to downsize and upsize, then it's got a lot less workload and it may remove some of that jittering.
Let me bring one more thing up here before we go away, and that is I would encourage you with your internet company. Most of them now have mobile apps. You can find the status of your internet from them. If they have an outage, they usually will tell you, on the app. And there's things that you can do with the app, like Xfinity has one. Comcast Xfinity has one. I have one on my phone, and it will tell me if there's an outage, which is sometimes a little more convenient than trying to get on the phone and call them. Another thing with the app will do many times is you can restart. A lot of times they'll restart it for you. They'll restart your modem, your router for you using the app. So I think that if you've got that in your back pocket, so to speak, on your mobile device, that can be helpful when your internet's going out or getting really weak. Sometimes you can get a status report on that. And again, it's just one less thing you have to deal with if you've got that available. So, all right. Any other questions at this point? I think we're good here. We want to encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions, and the 10 Commandments of Streaming Video, send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. We'll send you the PDF of that, and we'll also send you the link to the webinar. And I think we're done here. Thanks, guys, for all your help, and thank you for spending some time watching this webinar. And again, this is brought to you by streamingchurch.tv. If we can help you with anything, please reach out to us. Just go to streamingchurch.tv. My name is Phil Thompson. On behalf of Steve Lacey and Michael Gray, we hope that you have a great day and happy streaming.